Hello and good evening on this beautiful Friday. It's not Friday, it's February 15th. It's a Thursday. So I'm wishing you a very happy Thursday, February 15th. It's currently 7:48 p.m. Now today is podcast number 29, on day 29 of going live. That's right. I've been going live for the past 29 days. For those of you that didn't know that, for those of you that are joining, I am a person who's been doing these kind of podcasts for 29 days live. And the reason why I've been doing it is to challenge myself to get out of my comfort zone. If you want to do something incredibly uncomfortable, one of them is to challenge yourself so that you could do podcasting live. It's hard enough as it is looking at a camera and even just talking, but doing it live, now you've added the intensity because now anyone could be watching at any point and you could be making a mistake and you can't go back and edit it because it's live. So the challenge that I put myself through is to first do 30 days of me going straight up from 0 to 30 every single day live. Now I've decided that I'm going to continue doing it until day 90. That's right. I'm going to keep doing it until day 90. And subconsciously, I'm actually thinking to myself, I should go to 300. Not because of the movie, but because 300 seems to be a great number. And transformations don't really happen in 30 days. And am I looking for a transformation? Of course I am. I mean, who else is it? But today, I'm going to be talking about, as the title in this podcast thing says, I'm going to be talking about finding your purpose. Now, who am I to be talking about finding your purpose? Well, I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I studied psychology. I have a minor in psychology. So I know a lot about psychology. I know about dentistry. I'm a dentist. Some people call me doctor. And I've gone through a lot of things in business. So, as my friend once told me, she said that business is a spiritual exercise because it will destroy you and humble you. And then you have to really test yourself to keep going. You have to become relentless in order for you to succeed in business. And so, why am I talking about finding your purpose? It's because in a sea of trouble and a sea of confusion, you have to cut through the clutter and be able to find your purpose. Now, what does it mean to find your purpose? It simply means that you have to find your calling, and your calling is simply something that you resonate with. It's not necessarily something you're born with, something that you have a talent for, but it's just something that you resonate with. Maybe as a kid, you were bullied. And so then as you grow up, you have a passion for anti-bullying. Maybe when you were a kid, you saw a lot of people suffering with regards to, lacking any kind of material possessions. And so then now your passion is in charity. Whatever it is that you have a passion for, obviously that thing that you have passion for is going to be helping someone else. And so your passion, your mission, your raison d'être, as we say in French, is to hone in on this thing and to find your purpose. And what's the reason of finding purpose? Because studies have shown that people who actually are driven by purpose live longer, live happier, and live a much more fulfilled life than those people that are just humdrum, live day to day, and don't have any kind of purpose, don't have any kind of reason as to why they're waking up. If you wake up in the morning and you cannot answer the question, what is my purpose? Then you have to do this. So you have to pay attention. This is for you. Even if you do have a purpose, or even if you think you have a purpose and you're a little bit confused, I do have golden gems I'm going to be dropping so that it can help you as well as help those around you. So the first step in for you to find your purpose is to ask and then to choose. To ask and then to choose. So there are two components to this first step. Now, what is it that you're asking? Are you going around and asking people? Are you going around to your mosque, to your church, to your synagogue, to your Buddhist temple, and you're asking, what is my purpose? Or wherever else you want to seek advice from? No. As a matter of fact, it's actually advised for you not to seek advice with regards to what your purpose is, because your purpose is internal. Your purpose is part of you. So you have to find it. Yesterday, I talked about some certain methods for you to be able to question and for you to really dig deep into your soul. And this is the part that really matters for you to actually find your purpose. And that you have to ask your own self, what is the thing that is on your mind? So there is this exercise, it's called 100 questions. You haven't done it before. If you have not done it before, I highly suggest that you do, because this is an exercise that is going to actually get you to think properly. It's going to get you out of the victim mindset, and it's going to get you into the what the heck am I doing mindset. And this is the mindset that you want to be in. You want to be in the thought mindset. You don't want to be in the, you want to be in the clarity mindset. You don't want to be in the victim mindset, the I feel sorry for myself mindset. So this is how it's done. Very simple. 3 steps. The first one is that you write down 100 questions. Any questions that comes to mind. Any questions, literally any. It could literally be as simple as, where does water come from? Or why is water clear? Whatever it is, but you're going to come up with 100 questions. Now, if you're anything like me, you're going to find the first couple dozen questions, they come in very easily. But then as you're writing or typing, wherever you're actually writing this, you're going to find it difficult because now you really have to think about the questions. Now, as you ask more and more questions, you're going to notice a pattern of certain questions kind of repeating themselves because your mind keeps circling around them. But keep going, don't stop. Don't be like, oh, this question keeps coming up. I keep thinking about this, or that's the thing that's been on my mind for ages. It doesn't matter. Just keep doing the exercise until you get to 100 questions. Step 2 is to look at those 100 questions and see which 10 pop up, which 10 that has the most impact on your life actually pop up. And then you take those 10, step 3, and then you reorder them from strongest to weakest in terms of their impact on your life, in terms of their priorities to your life. Those are the 3 steps. Now, if you do this once every week or once a day, your mind is going to now focus around the things that actually matter, and the distractions around you are going to be minimum because now your brain is focused, and because you're going to be asking yourself certain questions. When you ask yourself any question, your brain must find an answer. If you ask yourself, why am I so stupid? Your brain is actually going to find an answer. It's going to look back. It's going to go back into the time, and it's going to look for evidence as to why you're stupid. If you ask yourself, why am I fat? It is actually going to find reasons as to why you're fat. Oh, I have low metabolism. My parents are fat, or I cannot stop eating junk food. I love McDonald's. Like, you're going to find an answer. So whatever question you ask, the better the question, the better the answer. Obviously, the better the question, the better the result for your life. So if you keep doing this daily, right, on this every single day, and I highly encourage you to do this as many times as possible, not necessarily every single day, but as many times as possible, and then you read and you research at the same time, because now your questions are going to get much better. So that's the ask component. The other way to ask is, now that you have, you've sought a little bit of clarity, you have these questions, you've been doing them for some time, and now the second step is now for you to actually establish a goal. Now, so if you have 10 things, so let's say these 10 things, and let's say there are 10 things that you want to achieve, for instance. And so you're like, all right, so now I have 10 things I want to achieve. I have 10 months. So if you were to have one of those, which one of those, if you were to have it in the next 24 hours, would you choose so that you can get it in 24 hours? If you had a magic wand and you were to just to wave that wand on that list of 10 things, and you could have that thing in 24 hours, that one thing, which one would it be? Whichever one pops at you, take it, transfer it to another sheet of paper. And now what you have to do is you have to figure out what kind of things do you need to do? What what task list? That's dyslexia, if you just noticed. What task list do you have to come up with in order for you to achieve that thing, in order to achieve that thing that you really want to achieve in 24 hours? And you have to set a deadline for the end of the year. I highly suggest you do that for the end of the year, because anything longer than that is going to be a little bit out of focus. I mean, if you can focus for something for much longer than a year, maybe like 5 years, it's great, because we always underestimate what we can do in 10 years, but we overestimate what we can do in 1 year. And so that's what gets us down and gets us demotivated, because we're not looking long term. We're literally looking at just 1 year short term kind of steps. So now you have one thing that you're going to be focused on for the next 10 months, because you have 10 months left for the 2024 until 2025. And so now you have a list. I did it again. You have a list, and then what you do is you create a checklist on things you're going to be doing every single day to accomplish this task list. So that's the ask then choose. And then the advice is for you to rewrite that list and that goal that you're trying to achieve once, or even better, twice a day. Once in the morning as soon as you wake up, and once at night before you go to bed. Because if you do this every single day, now your brain is so laser focused on that goal and that task list that now your brain is looking for answers. It's looking as you're working during the day, as you wake up, as you're having breakfast, you're eating lunch, dinner, your brain is thinking about that because now you've trained it to think about these things. You're no longer distracted by the latest trend on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, or whatever it is. So that's step number 1 in finding your purpose, is to ask and then to choose. Ask using 100 questions, narrow down to the 10, find the one that pops up, come up with a task list, and then reach that goal by the end of the year by rewriting the goals and the task list every single day, twice a day, in the morning and the evening. Okay, so that is ask, then choose. Step 2 is to eliminate distractions as much as possible. Obviously, when you're feeling overwhelmed, and this is completely normal. Like if you're, for instance, if you're not in shape, right? The majority of us are not really in shape, and you want to get into shape. Well, now your brain's like, how do I get into shape? What do I have to do? What is the first thing I have to, how many times do I have to go to the gym? Do I have to drink a lot of water? What do I have to cut out? Okay, how about I just do a celery juice, detox. Like you go extreme. You don't even know what you're doing. And so then what happens is you start becoming incredibly overwhelmed because there's too much. And now you feel demotivated because you're like, oh, it's going to take too much time. I don't know what I'm doing. And then you kind of just give up. Now, the thing is that what we do when we give up is that we then do the exact opposite of what we have to do to achieve that task. So, if we're trying to lose weight and we do it for like, I don't know, a week or two or whatever, and then we start seeing results, but we're not seeing the results as fast as we want, then what our brain does, it retaliates. It actually self-sabotages you. And then it says, all right, fine. I'm going to eat chocolate. I feel like eating chocolate. I haven't been eating chocolate for 3 weeks. I'm going to go ahead and eat some chocolate. And so you self-sabotage. And then you go backward. Instead of, making progress, now you're going backward. And that distraction, the one I'm talking about, that distraction is a dopamine hit, right? So let's say, for instance, one of your things is that you want to read more because you don't feel like you're very well read. And so you're like, I need to read a lot more. I want to read one book a day or one book a week. And so then your brain isn't used to it. So you're like, okay, I'm going to dedicate, 2 hours a day, but you haven't even dedicated 10 minutes a day. Now you're going 2 hours a day because that's how we think. We always think extreme. And so then your brain now is depleted of dopamine. And now you need some kind of distraction because you're not in that comfortable state. You're not in a state that you actually feel good in because you're not used to it. So you're going to open up your phone and you're going to start scrolling. 3 hours later, you're like, oh man, I did it again. So you have to eliminate distractions as much as possible. You have to actually consciously tell yourself that from this time to this time, let's say from like 7 to 8, I'm just going to focus on this. Whether it's going to the gym, whether it's cooking healthier meals, whether it's reading more, whether it's contacting more people, whatever it is, block it. Okay. As one of our very first podcasts that we talked about the Pomodoro effect, or the Pomodoro principle, which is for you to chunk your time into 25-minute blocks followed by a 5-minute break, and to do that as a 4-set increment. So you have 25 minutes of dedicated focus, laser focus, everything shut off, work, and then followed by 5 minutes of break, and then followed by 25 minutes of work, so on and so forth. You do that 4 times, and that's basically 2 hours of you doing incredibly intense work that you can get a lot done without you even actually having to sweat, because you've broke it down and you've focused, and you're kind of rewarding yourself for those 5 minutes between every 25 minutes of pure focused work. All right. So eliminate distractions. Eliminate the need for dopamine. Eliminate the need for dopamine. Now, I'm going to tell you from experience that this is going to take a ton of effort. It's going to take a lot of time. You're going to fail, but you have to just persist. Okay. Believe me in this. You just have to persist, and you get better over time. It does take time, but you will achieve as you see results coming in, as you see yourself improving, as you see your body improving, your mind gets sharper, your memory is sharper. You start developing more, relationships that actually have meaning to them. Then you'll actually be encouraged to keep going. but there is a huge hump until you get there. So the first thing is to eliminate distractions. And also, part of the distractions is drugs and alcohol and anything that would render you to be in a somnambulant state. So a state that you're kind of just half asleep, just kind of just walking around, kind of not knowing what you're doing. Cut that stuff out. And the best way for you to have a successful day of you eliminating as much distractions as possible is for you to focus on your sleep. Focus on your sleep, and then you'll be able to have the willpower for you to decrease the amount of distractions. Because if you're trying to, let's say, cut out junk food, but you are depleted of energy and you haven't slept well, stress levels are high, well, guess what you have to do now? You have to now get junk food in because you need to cope. But if you're focused on sleep hygiene, turning off your cell phone 2 hours before you go to bed, not having any kind of blue light enter your brain, not getting into any kind of dramatic conversations, reading a book or meditating an hour before, taking a cold shower an hour and a half before. You have to have some kind of routine for you to have this kind of sleep hygiene into a pattern. So no matter what happens during the day, you're still going to be sleeping well. You sleep at a certain time and you wake up at a certain time. Sleep hygiene is incredibly important for you to be able to decrease your distractions as much as possible. And the last, but certainly not least, for you to find your purpose is for you to discover by doing. Discover by doing, because growing up, the first thing that really comes to mind is I don't know what my purpose is. I have no idea what I'm good at. I don't know what I should be doing because there are too many options. When you have too many options, the brain shuts down, gets overwhelmed, and you start just wasting your time. Been there, done that. So the best way for you to actually find and discover is by doing, literally by doing. So look at me here, for instance, with the podcast. I've been doing this now for 29 days straight. Now, obviously, over time, I've gotten more comfortable with the camera and slightly better with regards to talking on the camera and being able to think clearly, being able to come up with better, points, better topics, being more fluid and more comprehensible. But I still don't quite know exactly what my, what they call in marketing the niche, right? I don't know the exact niche, but I know what I'm doing. I know that I want to be able to help people as much as possible to think clearly, to see the other side of it so that they can kind of realize that it is possible for them to get out of this humdrum, this somnambulant state, this thing where they just feel like a zombie and they just repeat the same thing over and over again, kind of just live for the weekend and then start Monday dreading it over. Like, it's just it's a very boring lifestyle. So this year, finding yourself a purpose is literally the way for you to live a fulfilled, happy, successful, and long life. Who doesn't want that, right? Finding your purpose. So the first thing that we talked about is ask, then choose. Remember the 100 questions followed by the 10 goals, followed by repeating them twice a day. Then we talked about eliminating distractions, right? So eliminate as much distraction as possible. Understand that dopamine is a factor that plays in it, and that if you eliminate any kind of screen time, movie, social media, TV, comedy, any kind of feel-good foods, whatever, you eliminate it or decrease it as much as possible, and get rid of drug, get rid of alcohol, and sleep better. That's step 2, eliminate distractions. Step 3 is to discover by doing. Do as much as you humanly can, because then you'll be able to discover your purpose, because then you'll be able to hone in on your goals. You'll be able to see, okay, is this the thing that is what I'm passionate about? Now, the one thing that I caution you is don't dilly-dally. Don't just dip your toes into something and then say, no, it's not for me. Then dip your toes into something, no, it's not for me. Remember the concept of latent potential. In one of the podcasts that I've discussed something called latent potential. Latent potential works, and it's really amazing. It's the concept of how ice melts. And so if you take ice and you try to heat it up, right? You put heat directly on the ice is not going to melt until it gets to a certain degree, right? So until it gets to a certain degree, it's not going to budge. You're not going to see it melt at all. But what's building inside the ice is something called latent potential. So a lot of energy is actually being stored into that ice. right? So let's say, for instance, just for the sake of argument, let's say, for instance, latent potential of ice is, I don't know, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. I know that's completely not true, but let's just say it for the sake of argument. So let's say it's 32 degrees Fahrenheit and you have reached 31 degrees Fahrenheit of latent potential, but then you quit because you know why? Because you put in so much effort and you're not seeing the ice melt. Well, by you not going all in, by you not pressing hard when you are feeling like you should give up, when you feel like nothing's working, when you feel like, you've given it everything you possibly can and there's nothing more, and you kind of, you still push, you're going to see the ice melt. But if you don't push, the ice will never melt, but that energy would have built up into that ice. But all you needed was one more degree. That's it. One more degree. There's actually another story, a really cool one. I don't know how true it is, of this excavation kind of company that they went on a gold mission trip. And so they bought all this equipment, spent millions of dollars, got investors and whatever. And, they knew that this area had gold. So they started digging, and they were digging for months, right? And they spent so many millions of dollars trying to find all this gold because they knew that this area had gold. Months, and you know what? They tried incredibly hard for them to find the gold. Many hours, many people, and then nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. They couldn't find the gold. Nothing happened. And guess what? They just left. They ran out of money. They left. They ran out of hope. They didn't want to, bug any more investors. They just kind of gave up. They left all the equipment in that area and they left. A guy comes by and, he's driving by and he sees all this equipment. The next day he drives by, he sees all this equipment, so on and so forth. And then one day he's like, why isn't anyone there? Then he goes and walks around and realizes it's been deserted, right? Like there's like sand and stuff and no one's been there. You can see there's no footprints anywhere. And so he wonders, he goes, okay, what is it for? So then, because it's in an area, obviously then he contacts a geologist and he asks the geologist, hey, is there something of value here? And then geologist then looks up in the area, researches, and says, yes, there's gold here. Now, the man, knowing a little bit about farming and whatnot and, machinery, he decides he'll dig and see if he can find some gold, because he already got it confirmed with the geologist. Geologist said, yes, there's definitely gold here. And so then he dug one more inch with the machine, just literally one more inch. And he found all the gold that other company was looking for. One man stole, basically, well, I mean, not really stole, but he took over someone else's work because that company decided to quit when they just needed one more punch. So don't be that person. Don't be the person that doesn't go all in. Don't be the person that lets go of that treasure that is literally just 1 inch away from you. Go all in, never stop, never quit until you actually get to that result. Once you get to that result, then you can determine whether or not that fulfills your purpose. Because once you get to that result, you'll understand whether or not that fulfills your purpose. And then you can decide whether you should go back and choose something else and go all in on that. And there's nothing wrong with going all in on, on certain things until you achieve the goal, and then to switch to something else. There's nothing wrong with that until you find your purpose. That's the whole point of this podcast, is for you to find your purpose. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you're having a wonderful Thursday. I know today snowed, but it's all good. Today is day 29 on my 29th day of doing live on this Discover with Spinati show. And as always, stay well and keep smiling.